Hey, Tom.
I'm ready. It's all good. We should start seeing people populate. Up here they come, I think. We're starting to get participants in. Oh yeah, here they come. Angela, Cindy, Gavin, Joe, Mary, Michael, Trish. Lots of people popping in.
Oh, cool. Where are you seeing those?
I'm seeing that there's a participants list down on the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I just see a number.
If you click on it, then it'll bring up a list over on the right hand. Well, for me, it's
Oh, yeah.
well, everybody wants to see you today, Michael. Well, good. It looks like we have, it's kind of stopped loading, or
Okay.
the number has kind of slowed down. So we can go ahead and get started this morning if you like.
Yeah.
Thank everybody for joining our presentation this morning with Michael. It's my pleasure to introduce Michael McEwen to you guys today. Michael launched his first collection at ICFF nearly 2 decades ago and has always staked out his own artistic territory. McEwen's luminaires are handcrafted to order in his Berkeley, California studio. With a background in textile science and design, sculpture and dance, McEwen is uniquely suited to a medium that blends science and art with a touch of poetry. Michael's romantic sense of lighting and the ability to translate into bold sculptural form is what made his reputation. Please welcome Michael McEwen today.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I've got a couple programs to run here. One is I'm going to take you a walk through our studio and through the interior of my mind in terms of how I approach design for our standard collection and also for custom work that we do. So I'm gonna pull up my screen here. And get going with this. So hopefully everyone can see this. So yeah, thanks again. So I started McEwen 30 years ago in 1990. And at the time, I was creating fixtures out of found objects and selling them to art galleries and gift shops. And it was really just a hobby. I never really thought that it would turn into a full-time job. But here we are 30 years later. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run through a bunch of images here of fixtures that we have made, installation shots of installed pieces, and then studio shots as well of work in progress. Let's see. I've had the great fortune to be able to work with so many different and amazing designers and architects within our design community over the last 30 years. We started our standard collection in, the fixtures that are represented in our catalog through showrooms across the country, including up at the Seattle Design Center at Tom Hunter's Trammell Gagne. In 2003, we launched the collection at the ICFF, and we've been going strong ever since. So many of the fixtures in our standard collection are, just straight from my imagination. Many of the fixtures arrived in our collection through my collaboration with interior designers and architects, where we made designs for site-specific spaces. And then eventually we pulled those designs into our standard collection. So we'll see a little of all of that as we go forward here. So a lot of my inspiration comes from working with materials and with tools. Maybe it's an odd place to start. I don't necessarily imagine shapes in my head and then go from there, but rather I love the tactile experience of working with materials, and I love tools, and I love the capacity of tools and exploring what they're capable of doing. So, here's a good example. These are a pair of custom floor lamps, and that material there is not rocket science, but those are English cut beads from the Czech Republic, and they're trapped in 2 layers of wire cloth.
Michael, we're not seeing anything. We're only seeing the slide that says McEwen on it, Modern Luminous Artifacts.
You're not seeing any of these images?
No.
I've been running through images the whole time.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Bring your shared window to the front. And let me try again. For God's sake. I don't seem to be able to escape out of I'm going to stop share and start again.
We've done 5 Zooms this week so far, and they've all had a teeny tiny little glitch. So it's.
Are you seeing my screen now with the 2 floor lamps?
No, I see you right now.
Sorry about this, everybody. I cannot find the screen share icon anywhere.
Hey, Gina or Jennifer, if you're there, can you render assistance?
Okay, hang on, here we go. All right, do you see my screen now?
Yeah, now we see it.
All right, do you see my screen now?
Yes.
You see the 2 floor lamps?
We do, we see the floor lamps.
Okay, I'm gonna back up a little bit.
Okay.
And we'll race through these. I'll just keep talking. Can you see the images now, Tom?
Yeah, it's still the 2 floor lamps.
Really?
Yeah.
The 2 floor lamps. My slideshow is not proceeding.
Go back to the screen before this, even though it was showing just the PowerPoint, everything PowerPoint. Yeah. No.
So now you see the logo.
I can see that. Yeah. Now I just see the logo.
Do you see the first image?
I only see the logo sheet, the first slide right now.
God. I guess I'm going to have to do it like this, which is a little absurd.
Yeah, do that. No, that's fine.
All right.
Yep, I can see that
All right.
change.
You see the wing floor lamp?
Yep.
I mean, the wing suspension fixture?
Yes.
Are you seeing the slides change?
Yes, now we're seeing them change.
All right. Okay, well, this isn't ideal, but I don't know why my full screen won't work. But anyway, here we go. So I was talking about how I enjoy working with materials, and this case here, these table lamps were made from mica discs. Back in the early days of my experience working with found objects, I went to an airport salvage place with a friend of mine, and near the Oakland airport, and they had these envelopes of these little mica discs, and I played with them for years before I figured out what to do with them. But eventually, I figured out a way to use copper rivets and assemble them to a polycarbonate substrate, and then we could make different forms, bend them into round shapes and use flat pieces for rectangular fixtures like these. These are the English cut beads trapped in wire cloth that I was discussing earlier. And then many of our standard fixtures end up being modified for custom applications. This is a lounge in the Mandarin Oriental Hotel in Milan, and we worked with Antonio Soterio's office to modify our barrel fixture into these more elongated pendants for this space. This is our wing fixture. And this fixture was designed also for a site-specific space, and we'll look at that later down the road here. So this is our Prism fixture. This fixture here, I had intended this to be for a home in Belvedere in the San Francisco Bay Area. I designed the fixture for the space, but as often happens, it fell off the budget. But I had built up momentum at that point and determined that I would complete it. And now we have introduced it into our standard line. Here's some detail shots. So it's a 12-sided polygon, and then each of the 12 sides has 4 facets. So there are 48 individual glass facets here. And this is a fully integrated LED fixture. And this fixture is hanging at Tramelgagné too. Here you can see some of the details. This is a restaurant in Las Vegas in the Crystals. So we worked with an architectural office to create these oversized floor lamps. Those armatures are 10 feet high. And my client had been inspired by one of our standard fixtures, the Sonos, which is an acrylic body clad in glass. And we arrived at this shape for these truncated tapered pieces. This is the Sonos fixture from which that fixture came. This is probably one of our better known fixtures. It's our Gear fixture, and this is in a loft in the Notting Hill area of London. So that's a 48-inch fixture with our Japanesque finish, and its little sister fixture, the core, behind it in the alcove. So these are modifications of our vellum fixture. So these are 2 out of 3 60-inch fixtures for a restaurant in San Francisco. And these are a pair of our pool floor lamps. This was a showcase house in San Francisco a few years ago that was designed by Jeffrey D'Souza, and he selected a couple of our pool floor lamps to go into the space. Here they are here. These fixtures were introduced into our line and came from my days doing found objects. I used to frequent salvage yards and scrap metal yards. And one of the things I would come across were these pool lights, swimming pool lights. They were these beautiful copper canisters with those amazing lenses. Probably everybody's seen these in the wall of the swimming pool below the diving board. But they have this beautiful spray of light from that prismatic lens. And so, although we make these in-house now, the swimming pool light lenses are still purchased from the SwimQuip Corporation of America. So this is our Argo pendant, recently introduced into our standard collection. These are fully integrated LEDs. You can see that the power supply driver is in the ceiling canopy. So we're using cast glass that we kiln form in-house. This is opal glass. There are 3 cast glass ingots, as I like to call them, in a kind of a circular array with these brass facets. You can kind of see the geometry here. And then these are the companion sconces that go along with the Argo. These have been fairly popular for us. So here you can see the opaline glass. Here's a 3/4 profile, the same fixture in the bronze colored glass. And then here's a little mashup of 3, clear on the left, bronze, and then opal white. These come also in pale gold, and this is the 22-inch size. They also come in a shorter 16-inch size. This is our mirror surface mount. It's kind of my take on a Danish modern fixture. And its companion pendant. So this is also an opaline glass. We call it quicksilver. It's an opaline gray color. It's quite beautiful. And here is our little table lamp, small and mighty. It has a cast iron base. It measures 8 inches high. It has really powerful output, so it's great for a bedside reading light. And then here is a pair of our Sonos fixtures in the surface mount version, and a custom, more elongated pendant for this entryway with a sand glass with opaline on the interior face. So this is what we call our Quintessa Gear. So this was fixture. The design for this was based on our gear, obviously, but I took my cue from my client who wanted to see more illumination than just the inside face of the glass glowing. So we replaced the corrugated outer skin of metal with these individual cast glass pieces. And I will show you more down the road a bit of how we designed for the Quintessa Winery. Here's just a few ideas on how our fixtures can be used in corridors. Here, this is our egg fixture. This is our glimmer surface mount. And then here are a trio of our hex lanterns. It's copper perforated metal lined with glass. These are rather oversized lanterns for the, to kind of jibe with the oversized massive beams in this home. This is our linear wing fixture in an apartment in the Upper West Side of New York, along with our spade floor lamp in the lower right. And here is our vellum in a Dallas loft by Cravotta Designs. Our linear nebula fixture in this dining room and its companion wall fixture. Here is the Sonos surface mount in this master dressing area of this home. It's kind of hard to tell, but it is actually an elliptical piece. It's a little foreshortened by the photography. Here's the vellum again in this entry way. In this case, the fixture actually is round. It just looks elongated and elliptical by the wide angle photography. So these are a series of shots of this home designed by Marianne Chickatans in the Carmel area of California. There's our wing fixture with a couple of ballad wall fixtures on the wall below. So this is a home in the foothills, just inland from the ocean in the Big Sur area. California living at its best, outside, coming inside. That is our B-ring suspension fixture. This is another home. Our gear fixture, typically we're using a copper brass, and our finishes are Japanesque, which is a kind of a variegated oil rub bronze or deep brown oxide or satin nickel or natural brass. In this case, the client had a lot of zinc in the house and they wanted us to use zinc. So this was an interesting finish on this one. It's got that kind of powdery, silvery white effect. Here is a pair of our silver oak vellums for this massive cabin on the west shore of Lake Tahoe, and smaller version of the same fixture for the front entry of the same. This is Scribe Winery in the southern Sonoma Valley in California. And I was asked to design a fixture for the front lobby of this kind of 1850s hacienda style farmhouse on the original property. It's been converted to a winery, and they hold events in this space. And the front entry is around the corner on the left, and it runs all the way to the back where you can see this kind of circular alcove. I'm not sure you can see my cursor on the display when I'm pointing to things. So here's the back of that alcove. I kind of took my cue from the stained glass windows and that arced array of glass. And this is the Quay fixture. And we did introduce it into our standard collection. And this is its companion wall fixture. So we use these 8-inch diameter opal glass spheres for the sconce and for the pendant. Different finishes. So here we are in the studio. We were talking about the Quintessa Gear for the Quintessa Winery. So these are this is our kiln. This is the platform bed of our kiln. And you can see how we kiln form these glass pieces. For the winery, we also made some large wall-mounted pieces for the exterior wall of their tasting room. And you can see how these big washboard cast glass panels were adhered to these metal frames, copper frames, and you can see the individual triangular ingots on the left for the gear fixture. This is the standard gear fixture being fabricated for the same space. That's our beautiful Japanesque finish. The guys are putting on the corrugated copper panels on these. You can see some of the intricacies of the hand fabricated metal work that go into these. This is all silver soldered copper and brass. Here we are putting the cast glass ingots onto that armature. And here we are installing the fixture. This is me a few years back driving a scissors lift very carefully over the threshold through the narrow door opening of the front lobby of the tasting room for Quintessa Winery. So that's a 54-inch diameter fixture. You can see the wall-mounted pieces inset into the wall, flush with the exterior surface of the stone. And here's the interior of the space. You can see the tasting room behind this lobby on the right and the left through those passages. Nice furniture tray. And then these are some standing lamps that we did for the same space. They're bracketed to those metal columns, and they are hardwired to the floor for dimming. And then here's that gear fixture we were working on in the studio. This room, this cave, is directly below the tasting room, dug into the hillside. It's an amazing room. It's 28 feet in diameter, and with a dome ceiling, and it has four tunnels that run off every 90 degrees, and all the tunnels are curved and lined with those wine barrels. Pretty dramatic space. And another example of a fixture that we made, it was designed for the space, site specific, but eventually made its way into our standard collection as a freestanding floor lamp. We call this the Signal. Here is another California house in Oakland, backyard swimming pool. There's our hex lantern in a surface mount version. Back into the shop. This is May working on a vellum fixture. You can see the intricate array of reflectors that we use within the acrylic body. And you can see that these kind of clear glass candles are what form what provide the illumination. Here the fixtures are being clad in glass. And then there are those candles that I was telling you about earlier. So these provide diffusion and illumination for those fixtures. You can kind of see how the candles function within the fixture. The corrugated panels undulate around the perimeter of the fixture and create these chambers of illumination. So the candles fire light into the apex of these folds, and then reflect the light out, but also hide the source of the lamping from your eyes. So these are 3 fixtures that we made for the Silver Oak cellar. So I guess we do a lot of wineries based here in California, just south of the Napa Valley. Silver Oak Cellars commissioned 3 of these. I had been working on this design for another client for a while, the vellum fixture. I had imagined a kind of a cleaner, more stripped down version of the fixture, but in this case, they wanted something a little dressed up, maybe dressed down, actually, a little more rustic for the style of the winery. So we added the heavy chain and the heavy ceiling plate and the metal bands. However, this is the first time we made the vellum in the way that I had originally intended it. And it was designed for this home originally. This is a home in Woodside, California. That's a 60-inch vellum in the dining room. And you can see the wing fixture in a 72-inch version in the living room behind. It was also created originally for this fixture. I'm sorry, for this home. And this is our big little pendant, big sister to the little table lamp. It's bigger, so we call it the big little. All of these fixtures were designed for this home, and all of these fixtures have eventually made it into our standard collection. So more recent project. This was these were some renderings I made for a client, a designer in Cleveland, Justin Scott. And he commissioned me to make a rather large pendant for the great room. He had originally showed me a parchment fixture in a similar shaped cone, but he was also inspired by our Sonos fixture and its glass-clad acrylic bodies, similar to the ones that we did for the Wolfgang Puck restaurant. So this design emerged. It's basically 4 quadrants surrounding 4 bronze fins, and then you can see the intricacy of the metalwork at the top. We made this chain in-house. These are rather massive 4-inch long chain links. We ended up doing final assembly on the shipping skid itself. The fixture weighed about 380 pounds, and it was just kind of unmanageable. So we built it right onto the skid, after which we were able to ship it. You can see that there's kind of an eccentric difference between the interior slope, which is steeper, and the outer slope of the outer wall, which is less steep. So we have a wider wall thickness at the top and a narrower wall thickness at the bottom. You're starting to be able to see the scale. This is about 60 inches tall, and it's 36 inches around at the base. So we have all the interior glass in place and all the bottom glass in place, and now we're starting to put the glass onto the outer facets of the acrylic body. One of the things we think a lot about is shipping. Obviously, we want to do as good a job as we can to get your fixture to you safe and sound, but we also incorporate the means for installing the fixture in our packaging design. So a crate will be built around this with a means of tentering the top of the fixture in place, but it is bound to this skid, which is removable from the pallet. So once it arrives on site and the crate is removed, these 4 lag bolts in the corners are taken out. Then the installers can use those handles and lift the whole fixture and raise it up into place. It keeps the fixture supported, keeps the installer's hands off the glass. And then, once it's fully suspended, they can just lower the skid away. All right. So here's the fixture installed in the space. I think those are 22-foot ceiling. So you can see the fixture looks rather diminutive in the space. Okay, so that that is the end of my presentation on my standard collection and the way that I think about fixture design. I'm going to move to my next educational piece here, which is a quick talk about LEDs. LEDs are emergent, as we all know. And I am by no means the absolute expert on LEDs, but I thought I'd share some of what I've learned recently through the changes that have taken place in California. So as everyone knows, incandescent lamps are disappearing from our shelves. I think that the Energy Commission, the Federal Energy Commission is definitely holding lamps to a higher standard of efficiency nationwide. But in addition, California is a little bit ahead of that. So what we found is that with Title 24, which is the California Energy Commission's regulations for all things that use energy, incandescent lamps have pretty much disappeared from the shelves entirely because of their inability to meet those standards. So pretty much everything you're going to see, there's a few straggler compact fluorescents, but mostly it's LEDs. So I thought I'd go over a few of the ins and outs of.
Okay, this is Gina. Yeah. It actually froze on your last presentation. So why don't you stop sharing your screen really quick?
Okay.
And then reboot it, bring up the presentation you would like us to see, and then start sharing your screen again.
Okay. Share screen.
There we go.
Perfect. Yeah. So I actually haven't started showing any slides yet. I'm just talking. I'm going to start the presentation. You're seeing the McEwen screen?
Yes, now we are. Yeah, we weren't the time before. We just saw the last one. So
okay.
This is perfect.
Okay. All right, good.
Good job. Thank you.
All right. Anyway, let me see. So I thought I'd go through a few of the things I've learned from coming to terms with California Title 24 JA8. I think you can assume that what's happening in California, especially as regards to energy efficiency, is going to roll out across the country. So soon enough, this is going to be your experience as well. So I thought I'd share a few things that I learned in the form of a brief history lesson of illumination. So here we go. This is a little corny maybe, but here we go. So in the beginning, there was only darkness. And is my video going to play? My video is not going to play. All right. You know what? Sorry about this, guys. I'm just gonna. I had a funny thing to show you about sunrise and sunset, but you know, what do you do after the sun goes down? Well, humans are pretty resourceful, and we quickly figured out how to make fire to illuminate our spaces at night. Probably not in a brick fireplace like this, but you get the picture. Fireway gave way to burning animal fats and oil lamps, candlelight. And so soon we were able to illuminate our spaces. Along the way of the industrial age came gas lights, where natural gas was piped directly into our homes and we could control it more easily. But one thing that all of these sources had in common is that they came from fire. It harkened back to the hearth, to the warmth and comfort of what we had always known as inherent in the sources of illumination. Eventually came electric lights in all their different forms. But even here, whether it was a filament, a tungsten filament, a sliver of carbon, or a sliver of bamboo, what these also had in common with the previous sources is it was basically a burning ember, again, hearkening back to the warmth and comfort and radiant heat of the fire of the hearth. So here's kind of a little timeline that shows all the sources we were talking about, from firelight to candlelight to electric light. And then over here on the second to right, we had the dark ages of compact fluorescence. A few of those are still with us, but now here we are talking about LEDs. So what you see over on the right there is what we would call a retrofit lamp, meaning that it's intended to screw into the fixture that you already own with the Edison base. I think in this case, this is European lamps. That's a compact, or that's a double contact bayonet. But the idea is that you can screw it right into your fixture. It'll work on household current. But there are other forms of LEDs that have no sockets at all. They're integrated LEDs. Somewhere along the way, there's going to be a driver on a power supply to reduce the current from household to 12 or 24 volts. But in California, if you look for lamps, retrofit lamps that have Title 24 JA8 on them, I think you can be assured that you're going to get a quality of lamp that that we would all hope to get. So a few of the traps that you can fall into, we'll just cover some of these things. So we're all familiar with color temperature measured in degrees Kelvin. What does that mean? So we have a range of illumination that's basically in the white range, even though it kind of moves towards blue and towards yellow. This is what we would consider to be white light. From candlelight, 1800 degrees Kelvin to 10,000 degrees Kelvin. And where those terms come from, this is nothing you need to remember, but it's just kind of an interesting fact. In the scientific community, there's a phenomena called black body radiation. And it's just the discovery that if you heat a material, any material, but in this case, a metal bar, it begins to radiate light. And that light covers a portion of the visible spectrum from an orangey red to a white light, and even off the charts as the temperature gets higher into the blue area. So for our purposes, you can see the whole range of visual light as it appears here. Now, when we think about color temperature from lamp sources, what we're talking about is the way that the way the color looks when you look at the bulb, or if you look at the way that the bulb shines on a white wall. So we have this warmer light and cooler light. The kind of a strange contradiction in terms is as the temperature in Kelvin goes up, this is higher temperature, the light appears to be cooler, whereas in the lower temperatures, this is cooler temperature, the light is what we would call warmer. So it's just kind of reversed. But suffice it to say that for our purposes, when we're thinking about sources of illumination and the LED bulbs that we purchase, we're looking at a range of from around 1800 degrees Kelvin to 6,000 degrees. Sunlight at midday is about 5,600. Candlelight is at 1,800. Incandescent lamps would be 2,700. So if you're trying to replicate, light that would be approximate to what we expected from incandescent sources, you'd be in this 2,700 K range. Halogen light is a little wider. That's around 3,000 K. It's a little more middle white. So this is just an interesting aside. I'm fascinated by color theory. To me, it's interesting to observe that across the entire spectrum of electromagnetic radiation, which includes everything from microwaves to X-rays to sound, is this little tiny sliver of visible light. Everything on the left side of it is invisible to us, ultraviolet. Everything to the right is invisible to us as infrared light. But this little tiny sliver, which is from 400 nanometers to 700 nanometers on the electromagnetic scale, comprises our entire visual experience, the entire natural world that we see. Everything that's aesthetic as viewed through our eyes exists in this tiny, tiny sliver in the range. I don't know. I find that fascinating. Okay, so CRI. We were talking about color temperature before. That's correlated color temperature. It's the way that the light looks when you look at it or when that light is shining on a wall. CRI is color rendering index. So what this is when a light source shines onto an object and we expect to see color from that object, what happens is that some of the light is absorbed into the object and some of it is reflected back to our eyes. So when we think about color rendering index, the ultimate reference is sunlight. And at midday, sunlight produces fidelity in color that would be measured as 100. So that's the benchmark, right? 100 CRI. Okay. When you think about LEDs, though, LEDs are like little replicants. It's artificial light, right? They're actually a solid state circuit. So they're pretending to be a natural light source. But the truth is that they are inconsistent in terms of the fidelity at which they reflect true color back to our eyes. And as they deviate from 100, from true fidelity, the score goes down. So you can see that when we get down to 70 CRI or even 80 CRI, the color isn't true. It's not as vibrant as we would expect. So you want to look for a high CRI number. The closer to 100 you can get, the better. And this is true across color temperature. So whether it be a 2700K lamp or a 3000K lamp, you can still achieve high color index renderings across that color band. So here again, you can see just what you might expect from lower CRI to higher CRI. Vibrant, more true colors on the right, deviation in hue and desaturation on the left as the CRI number goes lower. So it's one thing that's emerged now, the IES, which is the Illuminating Engineering Society, they're the ones who gave us CRI. There's a new standard. So CRI was invented in the 70s, and then in 2015, and then again in 2018, emerged a new standard, which is called TM30. So you probably haven't seen a lot of this, but if you really want to get your CRI right, if you really want to get your, the highest fidelity from your light sources, it might require you to do a little digging and investigating from your LED supplier. But if you can find lamps that have a high score on TM30, you're gonna get your best product. So the difference is that CRI from the mid 70s was testing colors, color fidelity on across the spectrum in only 8 places. So it chose 8 colors at random. They weren't necessarily correlated to anything that we would experience in real life. They just divided up the visual spectrum and evenly divided it into 8 different categories, and they took measurements there. TM30, on the other hand, is measuring 99 color sources. And those color sources are divided into 7 categories that are trying harder to replicate real world objects. So this is all done in a lab, of course. And what they're doing is they're measuring the color deviation and the reflectance relative to a known standard like sunlight, although it is produced artificially in the lab. So those 7 categories, the real world objects that we're talking about are plastic, skin tones, printed graphics, textiles, very important for us. And so as much as possible, what we're going to be looking for is a high score on the TM30 index. And whereas CRI measured just color fidelity, TM30 divides into 2 categories. One is RF, which is fidelity, the same as CRI. And you're looking for a number as close to 100 as you can get. And then the other measurement, RG, is called gamut, which is chroma, which is saturation. So you can see this bowl of strawberries here. The hue is essentially the same on either side of the divide there, but on the left, because the gamut measurement would be lower, the color looks less vibrant and just desaturated. The final thing that I want to talk about, and it's probably the easiest one to think of or to absorb, is watts versus lumens. So I think we all intuitively understand from incandescent lamps what it means when you say a 60-watt bulb. We've lived with them. We know how much light they'll produce. We know what a 100-watt bulb means. We know how much light that'll produce. We've not been taught to think of in terms of lumens, but now because LEDs are so much more efficient, we have to kind of learn a new language or kind of relearn how it is that that we know we're going to get what we had hoped for in terms of brightness. So here is just a quick chart comparing light to energy. So what, when we say a 60-watt bulb, it's really kind of a misnomer to think that that's an indication of brightness. It's really an indication of energy consumed. LEDs are much more efficient, so to produce the same amount of lumens, they're going to utilize much less energy. So these are the numbers on the lower range that we need to begin to memorize and just try to hold in our heads. What used to be a 100-watt bulb producing 1100 plus 1600 lumens is now only using 18 watts. So if you have an 18-watt LED, you can pretty much assume it's going to give you the same output of a 100-watt bulb. And then similarly, a 60-watt is about 8 to 10 watts with an LED producing 700 to 800 lumens, etc. So that's the end of my LED presentation. I know this is not complete, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. I'm turning the screen back over to you. Tom, if we have any questions, maybe you could MC the...
Yeah, we do have a few questions. I am going to just bring this most recent one up. The first one was on the fixture that was in Vegas that was based on the custom Sonos. Our attendee asked, where was that from? And I think that you mentioned later on that was at Wolfgang Puck's in Vegas.
Yeah, I think, yeah, thanks, Tom. Yeah, it was originally called Brasserie Puck. It's in the Crystals. It's on the Strip in Las Vegas. It's still a Wolfgang Puck restaurant, but I think they changed the name. I don't really know what it's called, but it's in that really wild stainless steel building called the Crystals, big shopping center in Las Vegas, and those fixtures should still be there.
And Nick, excuse me if I pronounce your name incorrectly, Nick Cesaro mentions that he has had the pleasure of installing several of your fixtures at a project in South Florida. Regarding the Gear fixture, how do you decide whether you use integrated LEDs versus standard incandescent type GU lamps?
Mm-hmm. Hey, Nick. Thanks for tuning in. Well, I think, I think we started off with that fixture. It was originally designed with xenon lamps. Clients wanted it brighter, so we switched to halogen. So, like a 48-inch fixture would use 44 different 25-watt halogen lamps. But, a 1200-watt fixture is just, it's not possible to produce anything like that in California anymore. There were early adopters who wanted LED, and so we would provide LEDs with the fixture. But honestly, my decision's kind of been made for me with Title 24 JA8. I cannot make a compliant fixture for sale in California that uses halogens any longer. So, and then with the advent of high quality LED, I feel satisfied in using them, knowing that they're going to produce the quality of light that we would expect.
Nick also mentioned that the effort and attention that you guys place on all of the packaging and the installation process after the sale has been very valuable to him and just extremely helpful once the product gets to the job site and they do their installation.
Uh-huh. Well, thank you, Nick. I appreciate
I'll
that.
attest to that too, because when we put these things up in the showroom, it's probably the easiest installation in the world, but your packaging is always the best.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I don't know, it's just shepherding our babies, to their final destination. The most heartbreaking thing in the world is to put all your blood, sweat, and tears into and make it a beautiful fixture, only to have it damaged in shipment, or because we didn't anticipate the series of steps required in installation, especially on bigger, more delicate fixtures. So we probably put about as much energy and attention into into the design of packaging as we do into the fixture design itself.
Next is Angela. Angela says, I mostly specify LED lighting for my residential new construction projects. I use high quality lighting listed as dimmable LEDs from sources like Artimity and Sonoman, etc. I use high quality dimmer controls, Lutron Maestro. I use the exact model of dimmer that the manufacturer specifies, but still I get flicker occasionally. It's frustrating to spend thousands on lighting and new electrical wiring and still end up with flicker that neither the electrician nor the manufacturer can help us out with. How do you make sure that flicker doesn't happen on your fixtures?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very frustrating. I share your pain. Well, I mean, I don't have the means to test every possible dimming system out there, but when we're designing fixtures and we plan on using a specific type of LED, we have household dimmers in the studio, and we test them with, not with every dimmer, but if I can find a dimmer that works with it, we'll actually recommend that on our tear sheet. So we'll say, use Lutron MELV 300p or equivalent. So we know that at least one dimmer will work with that fixture. I would say though that if you have an opportunity, even though you may not be specifying for the California market, if you can find sources that are JA8 compliant, you will find that they're held to a higher standard for flicker and dimmability than other products that may be out on the market. So that might be a place to start for you. So Title 24, I think the designation that you'll see is CA California, Title 24/JA8 2016 or 2019 compliant. So hopefully that'll help solve the flicker problem.
Next is Karen Murray, and she asks, what lumen do you use for your residential standing lamps, pendants, and sconces?
How many lumens? So the brightness. Well, I'll tell you what. One of the issues again with California Title 24 J8 is that it's a far more reduced range of options that are available to us than there were before. So in many cases, what I try to do is to have the brightest possible lamp included in terms of lumens output, and then on your end, all you have to do is dim it down, but it gives you the widest possible flexibility in your application. But I have to say that we have struggled with some of the sources that are more compact. For example, there is a xenon lamp incandescent that we used to rely on. It was called a T3 lamp. It's very small. It's about as big as your little finger. It used to use 60 watts and it put out 900 lumens, and there is no equivalent in that compact size in the LED arena yet. So many of them are limited to 500 to 600 lumens, which for my purposes is not quite bright enough. But new products are being introduced all the time. New products are being certified for J8 compliance, and so I'm constantly keeping my eyes open to incorporate those into our fixtures.
Great. Our last question is from anonymous attendee. Are you going to incorporate more LED into your new fixtures?
Yes, for two reasons. One, because I must, I have no choice, living and working and selling in California. And two, because again, I feel satisfied. We're constantly researching. I'm looking very carefully at those TM30 standards and trying to find the highest quality LEDs that I can. They actually allow us a lot more flexibility in terms of the design of fixtures, being able to include sources that are far more compact. It gives me a lot more flexibility in design, as shown, say, in our Argo fixture or our Prism fixture.
All right, and the Design Center is asking us to wrap things up because they've got to get the next one going, and they can't do that if we're online. But I wanted to say just a couple of quick things. First of all, if you can, if all of our attendees, if you'd like, please follow design.salvation on Instagram. They are giving away all of the everything that has been donated by our vendors as gifts for attending these presentations. You need to be signed up on design.salvation or following design.salvation on Instagram. So please remember to do that. And lastly, I just want to thank you, Michael. It's been so great to have you do this presentation with us. And we love representing your collection in the showroom. It really adds a lot of beauty, for one, to the showroom, and you're always great to work with. You're a true collaborator in your design process, and we really enjoy working with you. So thank you to everyone who joined us today, and we hope to see you all in the showroom. And Michael, we hope to see you in the showroom again someday when we can all travel around.
One can only hope. Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, Tom. Until next time.
Okay, see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.